Hi, this is Tracy Laurie, and I'm giving my presentation on Socrates and the Socratic Method. This is for the class, Historical and Social Foundations of Organization, Dr. Charles Smith at the College of Education, Southeastern University. So I chose Socrates and because I work in the legal industry. And so my presentation is going to look at Socrates, the Socratic Method, which was my historical trend, how the Socratic method has influenced the legal industry, how my research ties in with my personal learning philosophy, and how can I use my research in the future. So who was Socrates? Socrates was an ancient Greek philosopher. He lived from 470 to 390 BC. His mother was a midwife, his father was a stonemason, and this is really important because it influenced significantly who he was as a person. He apprenticed as a stonemason, and when he was actually working with young men, trying to get them to come up with new ideas, he would say references to birthing babies and things like that. He was a husband and a father. He lived quite a quarrelsome life with his wife, Xantippe, but he was also lived by very modest means, but he was also the life of the party. He was extremely extroverted, and he believed that he had a divine calling, that he was called by the oracle at Delphi, and so he really felt that he was inspired by God to do the work that he did. Whether or not he believed in the same God that we think about today, I don't know, but he was definitely someone who had lasting influence. What did he espouse? He was all about the search for meaning, and he believed in learning was incredibly important, equality, justice, truth, inspiration. He was really all about getting to the purpose of what is the meaning of life. And in the day, it was not a popular theory for anybody that was in ancient Greece, especially the leaders, to actually think this was a good idea. They actually were very upset. He went to trial because he corrupted young men, according to the leaders in ancient Greece. And I think if you think about it in terms of somebody that you know that questions everything that you do, that was Socrates. And that was something that didn't want that productive discourse and conversation. They wanted just to be able to lay down the law. That was not who he was. So what is he remembered for? Well, Western philosophy, which is essentially the search for the truth, critical thinking, looking at how we process information, the didactic form of questioning that is now known as the Socratic method. He also was very much, an advocate for human rights. He believed that all people were equal. He was sentenced for his corruption of young men and went to trial by jury. He also was known by his friends. He was friends with Plato, who we know a lot about Socrates because of Plato. Also, Xenophon and Crito were also his students and his friends, and we know a lot about him because of that. So Socrates was found guilty. He was not acquitted. And he had a choice to make when it came time to looking at his judgment. And the choices that were faced with him was he could escape. His friend Crito came to him and said, hey, do you want to escape? And he didn't like that idea. He could be exiled, but knowing somebody who's so extroverted, that likely wasn't a good option for him either. Or he could face death, which is the choice that he took. And I think he took that choice because it was uncovering the final answer to the ultimate question, like what happens after death. And his impact is lasting. He created the Socratic method. And with that, what is it? It's didactic form of questioning that is named for him. Its ultimate purpose is to promote learning, to promote the finding of purpose, what your purpose is, what truth is. It's something that today experts are saying is so overused that it's not really used productively. And so one of the suggestions that I read about was that how every time we use the Socratic method, it should be filtered through the lens of learning, purpose, and truth, which was Socrates' initial intent. I love how it's used. The power of questions, you could think about what comes with Socratic method, facilitation techniques. When you think about questioning someone, instead of just lecturing, that you're asking questions, getting them to think for themselves, coming to the truth, that comes to the Socratic method. Cross-examination, say in a courtroom or maybe even in a job interview, comes from the Socratic method. Coaching techniques, where a professional coach gets someone to really think about, what is it they want to be able to do? What is it they want to explore? And then business decisions, really thinking about critically, what are the things you need to do? How do you analyze those decisions, then making the right choice? All have foundations in the Socratic method. So how has the Socratic method influenced the legal industry where I work? It's used as the primary education technique in law schools, and it's something that, because of the extensive use, and I think part of it is because it ties into the criminal justice system where you're cross-examining witnesses, but I think it's also because lawyers need to get to the truth in order to be successful at what they do. And the pros of that is it really helps inform them in terms of the critical thinking they need to produce, what they do from a legal standpoint. It helps them with skepticism to a point where they don't necessarily trust things. They really search to uncover the truth. The cons of it is in law schools, they don't really teach you how to have compassion or people skills. And so it does not allow for that. And so there's been a lot of talk within law schools of how that needs to be adapted and brought back into education in addition to the Socratic method. The process that I love the best is this one, which was highlighted by Bogosian and Lindsay. And it's just really this 5-part process of looking at interests. So curiosity is necessary to kind of really even start the process of questioning. You have to have the premise, which is your hypothesis. You have to research. So this is where the Socratic method really dives in deep, where you really start to ask the questions to really get down and drill down to actually what happens. What is the who, what, where, when, and how? Then the decision is made. And once the decision is made, action is taken. So maybe if it's in a court of law, the person is proven guilty and they go to jail, or maybe they're acquitted and they're let off. If it's a job interview, the person is actually given an offer and hired and starts at the company. And so I love this process, and this is one of the processes I plan to use. So how does my research tie in with my personal learning philosophy? Well, Socrates was all about the whole person, and that is my personal learning philosophy. I believe that when you look at training and education, you need to look at who they are, their mind, their body, their spirit, their soul. We're all created by God, and we're all unique. And when we think about learning, the more that we focus on the whole person, the more we're going to get those individuals to the point of finding out really their purpose and helping them live their best lives. And that was what Socrates was all about, was how do you help people get to the truth of where they come from, what they're here for, and what their purpose is. And so that's how that ties in. So how can I use this research in the future? Well, I think in a law firm, it would be very productive to have a course on understanding Socrates and the Socratic method, especially for non-lawyers. I think it would help them understand how to work with lawyers and understand that constant source of questioning and skepticism. I also think that the special method that's used in law school, the interest, premise, research, decision, and action, could actually be adapted to use for business decisions, for projects and stuff like that. I think it would be great to research a project or a class on that particular project. Anyway, I've greatly appreciated this project and learning, and lots of references that I was able to dig into, and just want to say thank you. And this has been my presentation on Socrates and the Socratic method.